So I will give you, in my view, my brief overview of what's going on here, and of course, being the president of Unicamp now, I will share with you some of our initiatives here during this complicated period. But of course, I have to put this in a context, and as you probably know, most of you know that we are facing a very complicated times. I don't want to here compare the situation in the United States and Brazil, but we can indeed compete, and things are becoming worse and worse every day. I must tell you, every single day we have a complication and a problem, right? So this is something that we are facing, and in fact, even before this government, this administration, we faced a kind of fragility of democracy and the public education. Uh, we had have been suffering a lot of attacks from different sectors, and as soon as this presidency started, they started by ideological position and the hostility towards university academics. It goes from the most stupid things, like the former minister of education, Abraham Weintraub, who is now, by the way, in the United States. You are hosting him there at the World Bank. He claimed, for example, that the public universities had marijuana plantations, and they were the nest of communists. And there are everyday parties with naked people everywhere in the public universities. So these most stupid claims, but finally these claims came together with some strong drop reduction in the money, in the federal funding for universities. And of course, nowadays, more recently, we have seen a lot of threats to academic freedom, to the autonomy of the universities, which is in the constitution here in Brazil. Uh, Usually, as you know, there are elections here for presidents, for rectors, and the president is simply not choosing, as usual, the first one in the list. The universities have to send a list of three names for the president, and in the democratic regime, at least, it was always, or most of the cases, this was followed, and nowadays this is not true anymore. So he is simply choosing people from his side in order to, and he doesn't care who was elected by the university. So we are living a very complicated times in public education. I won't go into the details, but in this year, even during this pandemic, we had a lot of trouble, a lot of problems. So in February, there was a strong cut in federal scholarships by CAPES, and mostly were from humanities, from social science, humanities, arts. Uh, in March, the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation excluded the humanities as a priority of research projects from 2020 to 2023. Uh, they keep trying to launch a program called Futuricy, who is now a little bit now they forgot a little bit about that, but it's in any case it's a very complicated program. Uh, and they wanted to make it, you know to make it mandatory not to have any more elections during the pandemic. And this was of course interpreted as an excuse to interfere in the autonomy of the institutions and advance uh, his will to weaken their social function. So we are facing a lot of,
Marcelo,
yes.
Just a quick question. When you're using humanities, is social sciences, social anthropology, sociology, that
Yes.
those areas?
Yes,
Okay.
education as well, and
Okay.
everything not connected to more, technological or even the basic science. I'm not just saying about, humanities, but even basic science like
Mhm.
astronomy or any kind of mathematics, any kind of basic science is also out. So they are really trying to, well, to go into this more technological approach. Uh, the question is that paradoxically, as it might sound, the pandemic also made a turn into this situation, because of the pandemics, the universities, the academics had more voice in the media. So we have been called to programs in TV, to write papers on the journals, newspapers, and everywhere. So we managed, as institutions, of course, to have a stronger voice. It's not that the other voices were silenced, but we had the opportunity to have, more chances to speak loud about the importance of higher education, the importance of universities, the importance of science and technology. And of course, the society also realized that the only way to get out of this pandemic or to fight the virus is to do it with science and technology. So this is the situation that we are living right now. It's rather paradoxical because we are the attacks keep coming, but of course now we have more voice, more spaces to respond, and the public itself is, more aware of the importance of science and technology. So this is something that is, we are facing this change of perception of science in Brazil. I hear I put a link on an interview that I gave to Times Higher Education, and this is exactly what it's saying. The coronavirus is shifting the public perceptions of science in Brazil, and of course it also includes the universities, which in Brazil are the places where most of the research are performed. So a little bit of chronology here, going to the details of, in fact, some universities. In March 11th, as you remember, the World Health Organization declared the world pandemic. One day after, we decided to stop the presential activities. Of course, we have a big, huge health area, hospitals and so on, that we needed to keep working, but we were the first university to decide stopping, and we had no at that moment we had no case at all yet. Uh, I was under a strong stress in that period because I suffered a lot of attacks saying that I was precipitating and this was not necessary and so on. But after a few days, all the universities followed the same decision. Uh, we decided at Unicamp to keep the classes under the what we call the emergency remote teaching mode. Uh, this is not true. This was not true for most of the public universities in Brazil. Many universities decided to stop teaching until the pandemic's end. So they claimed the digital gap, the problem with the inequalities, the quality issues, some hope that the pandemic would end soon, and so on.
Marcelo,
Yes,
just one quick question. So when you made the decision to close, you said you had no cases at that point.
yes.
How have your students fared so far? I mean, how many confirmed cases do you have what percentage of your students have been, affected dramatically by COVID since then?
I don't have these statistics, but as far as I know, we don't have any lethality in students. We have, I would say, five faculty members that died from COVID. Five faculty members, and almost five staff members as well. So for a community that we have is about 15,000 people in staff, and it's a number which is in the expected range. But in the students, we don't follow now because they are everywhere. Everyone is in a different place, and we are not following everyone. So the problem here, as you can see, this is the federal system regarding the prosecution, that the attacks. As soon as the university decided, most of the universities decided not to keep teaching, the Ministry of Education launched this map with the institutions that were teaching or not, following each decision. I don't have the initial days, but you can see here, this one up is from the middle of August, 19th of August. And you can see here that half of the universities were still not working. The situation now is completely different. All the universities finally decided to work again, and they are teaching a little bit late. Well, most of them are really, really late. They lost almost a semester of teaching because they did the internal discussions and the decision how to do that and so on. So many of these discussions, as you probably know, were more related to some belief that the remote education is not good, that to anything else. It's more ideological than anything else. But finally, the reality, surpassed everything, and they had to change their approach. There were some rectors even here that they claimed to the newspapers that the university would only work again with the vaccine would be ready. So something that is completely, it's not a reality that will happen soon. We would say. Finally, we managed to make this transition rather quickly. I would say we ended here in Brazil, the semesters are from March to July, the first semester, and then from August to December, the second semester. We managed to end the first semester at Unicamp 60 days late. We were late, a little bit late, because we extended a little bit our period. And in September, finally by September, all universities that had decided to stop completely the return to the remote teaching mode. In October 19, just a few days ago, we started, I would tell you how we started the partial and gradual return plan at Unicamp. I will share with you some ideas of on how we are doing that. So
Marcelo?
Yes.
Did the government, federal government of Brazil, ever threaten to withhold funding from universities that didn't have at least partial on-campus classes?
No, I don't think so, because there was a strong discussion, in the not public, I would say, but the rectors were afraid that the situation, if they were going to teach remotely, the government, the federal government would say, look, you work so well remotely that you don't need that quantity of money that we give you every year. So they were afraid that the system would work very well and the government would eventually take out the money. So, but finally, I don't know any case of threats that they would reduce the money if they don't teach. I don't think so. But they of course make this kind of map, and they push it in order to make this happen. Well, in the private sector, oh, sorry, here is in Portuguese, but the problem, is huge, as it happens in all the schools all over the world. The problems of the enrollments decreased by almost 14%. They already had a decrease of 14% in enrollments, and the how do we say inadimplência? I would say people that not don't pay, the fees, grew by 30%. So they are reaching a very complicated scenario. Just to mention the numbers, there are about 400,000 students that left the higher education sector for a picture of a total of 6.5 million students. So it's a very large, it's a very large number in my opinion, and probably in 2021 they will face more and more problems. We are now reaching the period here of entrance exams, the vestibular, and I just talked yesterday with the rector of the university, Catholic University here in Campinas, and he told me that the number of people who applied to become students in the university reduced already by 30%. So they are really worried what will happen next year. So I won't go into the details about Unicamp. I will just share some basic information so that you can have an idea that our university is it's a state university from the state of São Paulo. Our resources most come from the state of São Paulo, the sales tax of the state of São Paulo, with the 2.1958% of the taxes of the state come directly to the University of Campinas from the taxpayers of the state, and this gives in numbers nowadays. The dollar has been changing a lot here, but I would say something like $1 billion per year. We have several campuses, several schools and institutes, and we have about 2,000 faculty members, and several hospitals, and a profile which is today of about 36,000 students, being half of them graduate students and half of them undergraduate students. So that you can have an idea, we have typically here 1,000 PhD theses per year, 1.5 thousand master theses per year. So it's a rather research intensive university. As I mentioned, a big hospital, healthcare area. All the region of Campinas, a region of about 6.5 million inhabitants around the city, depends on this high complexity center, and we were facing a lot of stress during this period. So we have schools, two technical high schools as well, as part of the university. And we have the admission exams. Just to mention, we have a fixed number of places. Last year was about 3,400 places. And we made during my administration a strong change in this admission, in its admission that in Brazil is called vestibular. We have now the quota system that was implemented during my term. We introduced a novelty here in Brazil. We are open now for direct places for students who got medals in scientific, mathematics, robotics, Olympics. We have now a special admission process for indigenous, native Brazilian, and as you probably know as well, we have many people trying to get in. because it's a very good quality public university, completely tuition free. So for these 3,400 places, we have about 95,000 applicants. So the possibility to get into the university is really, really hard. And the problem is that we are really we were, at least for some years ago, really elitistic in this way, because less than 4% of the applicants can get a place into the university. So we started several programs. One of the ones I am really proud of is the so-called Higher Education Interdisciplinary Training Program, which is it's called Profis. The Profis is a novelty in Brazil. It offers 120 places in higher education for the best students of the public high schools of the city of Campinas. So we open the place, we open a class of 120 students for the best students. And the secret here is to have, if you wish, a kind of regional quota. So we have it's a mandatory to have at least one student per school. We have around 100 schools at the city of Campinas, and we call directly these students from one single school of the city. And this program is already on the 10th year, and it's working very, very well. We have an affirmative action and social inclusion program as well, where we give the extra points to the admission exams for the students who have completed all high school in public schools. And we have now also the quota system. 25% of the places of undergraduate courses are reserved for self-declared Black and mixed race. Mulattoes would be in Brazil.
So Marcelo, just
Yes.
to be clear, when you say courses, that means majors, right? Or curricula, so that all
Exactly,
students in
majors.
computer science or in medicine or in elite fields are also
Yes.
subject to this affirmative action.
Not only on programs, but also in terms of period, because sometimes we have here the day period and the night shift. We have several programs that work at night, and we have for every single program we have this quota system as well. So it's
Okay,
and 50% of the students must come, at least 50% of the students must come from the public fundamental level school system. So from public high schools at least. Okay, this is mandatory as well.
Yeah, thanks.
And this this was the movement in order to start the quota system at Unicamp, and it was a very interesting movement started by the students, and it gave us a strong diversity to the university. So we are reaching year after years historical marks in terms of diversity. Just to mention here, we were stuck in about 15 to 18% of Black and mixed race, and now we reached the proportion of the state of São Paulo, which is about 42% of the population. So here, 37% here in the state of São Paulo. So you can see here, Black and mixed race, Black, pretos y pardos would be in Portuguese. So we are reaching the numbers of the state of São Paulo. And the great novelty here is the indigenous students, that we had no one before, and now we have 2% of the students which are indigenous. Just to mention,
Marcelo,
yes,
Marcelo, have there been any legal challenges to the quota system, as has been the case in the U.S., as you know?
Oh yes, there is always a problem. What we are trying to to battle that. There are some students that felt they were not they are in let's say in the legal system trying to get in forcibly, but we are reaching here a very good response. The point is that here the Supreme Court declared that the quota system is it's fine. So we have the okay from the Supreme Court. So these legal challenges, I would say that it's not will not progress, but we are facing. And now we also had a very interesting and important challenge as well, because we had a lot of trouble in the beginning at the first year that we started. We had a lot of problems with people that were really not uh, black or pardo, and we had to how can I say, I had to expel them from the university after some months. And then in the new system we made the what is called in Brazil Sistema de Heteroidentificação. So there is a committee in order to make the identification before the the enrollment. So it's a challenge, very complicated. It's very very complex, but we are progressing on that. This is the example that I would like to share with you regarding the indigenous. We are going to São Gabriel, for just to mention, we are going to make our exam, the vestibular, here in this town called São Gabriel da Cachoeira, which is in the limit between Brazil, Venezuela, and Colombia. And as you can see here, it's 3.6 thousand kilometers far from Campinas. It's about, I would say, 2,000 miles. If that correct, the transformation. So it's really, really far. We take about 2 days to arrive there. It's very hard to get in, and we are doing our exam there. Half of the indigenous students, in fact, come from there. So you can see here a picture taken there in São Gabriel da Cachoeira. This little boy is the environment he faces, and we are now having this kind of students from 22 different ethnicities or indigenous ethnicities coming to the university. There are some, I must confess here that there are languages that I didn't know that they even exist here, and they are represented, at least now, in our university. I think it's great to have them, and it's of course a lot of challenges, but I can share with you afterwards. Why I'm talking about that? Because in order to provide, to stop the presential activities at the university, we had to take care of these students as well. So the problem with most of these students is that they live in communities that are really fragile and really far, and we had to take care of every single student of the university, and this was a real challenge for us. Also, we have not only the university is tuition free, but we have a lot of scholarships and help for the students. We have housing, everything for free, of course, food and transportation help, social assistance, scholarships, psychological assistance, and so on. And so we transformed, for example, all the transportation scholarships and fellowships that we have on emergency scholarships, in order to give the students the possibility to buy a better internet connection or an equipment and so on. So we shifted most of the education to the remote system. 97% of the classes were shifted. We provided internet connection equipments for 1,000, for example. We bought 1,000 SIM cards, with notebooks, computers, tablets, new, and we made a campaign in order to get used ones in order to distribute to the students. We made a flexibility of all the university rules. We managed to have now the possibility to cancel any discipline, anything that the student would like to cancel anytime. They are allowed to do that. It was not the case before. We postponed the maximum time to finish the program. We changed the grade system. We usually had from 0 to 10, and now we changed it to pass, not pass. we gave the full frequency. We are not, asking if someone is in the class or not. Everyone has presence during all time. We changed, as I mentioned, the transport aid to remote emergency aid. We made available a wide variety of platforms and training for the faculty members. Well, it was a very, very complicated period. Now I list here, but you can imagine the complication of every single step and decision that we made in the process. We also started, I wanted to show you here that we managed to do something that is not common in Brazil. We started initially, we didn't have anything regarding philanthropy, volunteering, or help for the university. We started from zero, from scratch. Uh, and we managed in few weeks or few months to develop a strategy in order to make this program, which is called Ajude Unicamp, and having 4 different help systems to help the hospitals, the learning for students, emergency research, and also social projects. Just to mention, we managed to get more than 45,000 cestas básicas, we call it in Brazil. It's a basic, providing basic sustainability, food and basic goods for really, really, really poor people, in order to have them, face the situation that they have right now. So we managed to get 45,000 of these cestas básicas. So we started from zero to this program, and we managed to get more than 15 million reais in less than few months. This would be, of course, from the United States, we have a culture of that is not so much. That would be now something like $3 million from donations, but it's worth remembering that it's something that we had nothing before. So this is something about the change of the connection and the engagement with society that we managed to make during this period. And now, just to finish, we are now planning our return. We made a strong movement in the university. I must tell you that stop the presence, it was hard, it was difficult, but to return is even more difficult. It's extremely complex, extremely complex. So we decided to make a very gradual plan. We are making the full testing for all the students, staff, and faculty. We developed an application that everyone is mandatory to fill in every day. It's a kind of survey about the health. Every day we have to fill this out. We have mandatory online training courses for every single staff, student, and faculty member. And we are gradually allowing different places to return. Just to mention one example, as I mentioned, we have 16,000 graduate students right now. Many of them, they have the research completely stopped, because many places you need laboratory, you need to get in. So we are now starting by allowing these students that need some practical activity, some basic practical activity in order to finish their studies and to get the diploma and so on. So we are trying to keep a kind of hybrid system. Most of the activities online, but allowing some people to return in order to start some practical situations. So, but we face, as you know, a really complex university. Just to mention one example, I was discussing yesterday what we can do with the orchestra training. No, the orchestra, it's like very complicated in the music department. They need to train and they need to be together, and they have these wind elements that they spread the virus all over the place. So this kind of system, or how do we do with the dentistry, which the students have to stay a few centimeters from the mouth of the patients, and so on and so forth. So this is very, very complex, and we have all the information here if you are curious about that. So thank you very much. This is what I wanted to share with you, but of course I'm open to any question, discussion, whatever you would like to discuss. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Marcelo. It's none of us envies you. I think we all, sort of admire your courage and initiative in moving this forward. It's really a terrifying prospect. So I will open the floor for questions. Are there questions or comments for Marcelo?
David, it's Martin. I have a question.
Okay, please.
Hi, Marcelo. How
Hi.
are you doing?
Fine.
I wanted to ask you about this decline in enrollment. So I can understand it in the private universities. This makes sense because to pay tuition and to have remote education, someone would probably want to postpone that. But I think you said that the enrollment is also down in the federal system.
No.
No, not true.
Not true. In the private system, in
Okay.
in our university, it even increased. So
Everybody enrolled.
everybody enrolled, but we will have a big issue now because, as you know, the vestibular here is our NM is made in really crowded classrooms. It's a very the students spend hours in the same ambient together, so we will have a lot of trouble to do that as well. So we tried in the university to be more flexible about that. For example, the profis, we are experimented because we are able to do that in profis system. We are now using the grades from the high schools, the public high school system. The problem is that it's not consistent with every school has a different grade system, a different degree of complexity and so on. The problem is how this vestibular will work this year. In our university, we decided we have two phases. The first phase usually was now by the end of November. We postponed it to January, the beginning of January, and we are reducing it and making it in 2 days instead of only one. We are dividing in 2 days in order to have less, a little bit less crowded classrooms. But the problem with NM, I really don't know how they will do that. It will be in February, and it's really, really challenging because we don't know how the pandemic will behave until then. And this can compromise the next year for all the public universities in the country. I really don't know what will happen if the name is not possible to be done. And there is no way to do it online. There is no infrastructure, no possibilities to do online. So this is a big problem for the system for the future, I would say.
So the NA is still basically a paper test?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they haven't put in. I mean, it would still cause problems because many people don't have their own computers, but that would be a greatly reduced number that could come into public spaces or private spaces organized for them to take the test online.
Yes, but the problem, Martin, the education system is so heterogeneous. Here, of course, I'm talking from the position of one of the, wealthy university of Brazil in a very wealthy region, I was talking with the rector of the University Estadual, the State University of Amazonas. They have campus in 60 different cities in Amazonia, and they don't have internet, they don't have connection, they don't have anything there. So it's really, really hard in a country with so many inequalities and so on. The system itself should change, in my opinion, for an online system, but with several possibilities during the years, not only one day, and having
Good.
a broad possibilities for the students and in different parts of the country to make it. So a kind of hybrid as well. So there would be centers abroad, centers all around Brazil. But the complexity to change that is so strong that they didn't do it before, and now they are facing a very complicated period.
Thank you.
Even for us, we tried to make. I tried to change the idea of the vestibular now, but it's so much into the culture of the university here. There would be a revolution here in the faculty members if we try to change more than when we did. So my approach is to try to change little by little, pace by pace. But it's very, very complicated, the culture that has been established. It's very, very
Well,
hard.
because as you know, here, all the major tests have been designed for online.
Yes, that would be the best option, in fact. But
Well,
you cannot
it's
do it from one day to the other. It's very complicated.
Is there any discussion of the kind of cost that it would involve to do that, and to in fact improve access to the internet more generally?
Probably there is, but to tell you the truth, I don't think that this government is worried about education at all, and I don't think it's a priority for them.
So, Marcelo, I'm curious if you have, I mean, clearly you're in the middle of a crisis and sort of trying to adapt to unpredictable circumstances. I'm wondering if you feel like you've learned anything from the pandemic that you will keep as you move forward. In other words, has this made things better in some ways?
Well,
And I use the example of this seminar, which we used to do in person in the Lemon Center. When the pandemic came, we switched to online, and the seminar is better because we have colleagues from Brazil, we have more participation, and really we won't go back to sitting in a classroom. We'll continue to do it online. So I'm curious about what has happened that you see as a positive development out of this pandemic.
Yeah,
Marcelo,
well, of course, yes, sure.
Marcelo, I want to add a question to that.
Yes.
And that is, you're just beginning your remote teaching now. Is that correct?
No. We started just after the pandemic. We are almost. We managed to be one of the fastest university. We started as soon as in April. We started the remote teaching. So we are doing.
So my question to add to David's is, if you could talk about his general question, but also specifically how various departments and your professorate and students have reacted to the remote learning, and if what lessons you've learned there.
Perfect. Yes. In fact, I will share with you in the chat here. Regarding this, we made a very complete survey here at the university for different members, for the students, for faculty, for staff. I will share with you. I think it's really worth taking a look. It's in the chat now. You can take a look. We have several reports for the students, but I can comment on that. Well, I feel the same, David. The few months ago, that was my impression when I was invited to a webinar in Honduras, and I was there because I was very. It's hard to me to say no. It was late, and I was say, okay, let's do it. Typically, it would take me 2 days to arrive there. Probably in the seminar room there would be 40 people, maybe if they made a really strong push, probably 50. No, if nobody show up, they will call the doors of the faculty members there. Oh, come on, there is a foreigner here. Come to the seminar and so on. You know how it works, and typically it would take me 2 days to arrive, 2 days to accommodate. So I would lose almost a week, and I would talk to 30, 40 people. I was in that seminar talking to 600 people from all over Central America. I was so impressed that I was talking to people that I would never reach in their normal conditions, let's say. And this is really, really powerful, in my opinion. So this is something that we could keep doing. And of course, in terms of the university, I think it's simply crazy not to use this possibility to have more more classes with teachers from all over the world in order to teach a single a class of students, or even better, have different students from different universities in that course. So it's a kind of mix to have more integration, more consortia between universities in order to do things together. Uh, it's quite easy to do it now, and I think that the pandemic took out, this. We had this tools before, but we never use it. They are improving more and more every day, and of course, we are improving how to use them as well. So at the beginning, or sometimes we usually have yet some meetings that everyone speaks together. They have the this not silence the mics and so on, but we are learning on that as well. The problem is how to transform, and this is Rachel is here and know very well, to change the culture of a faculty member, or the way the faculty member teaches, is extremely difficult, and it's very hard to change the approach that they do. So we had some examples of teachers here that simply took out the class that they gave presentially to the remote system, and they are really boring. 4 hours speaking in front of a computer, nobody can handle that. And so in order to give the faculty members the tools that they need for this new digital world, it's a challenge for us all. So this is something that we can use as well. The other issue that I would like to say, here in Brazil, the discussion of the digital divide, the inequalities, it was so strong, and I usually make a kind of a rather provocative comment on that. I would say what, but before we had a lot of problems as well. The inequalities existed before we went online, and just to mention one example, in cities like São Paulo, that you probably know well, there are some students that spend 3 hours in public transportation to get into the universities. And they have to compete with students that take 5 minutes with their cars and they arrive at the same time, and they have to be on the same classroom. And nobody paid attention on that before. Now, with this remote online system, we can face this kind of issue if, of course, we provide good equipment with a good internet connection to these students. We can have more equality instead of inequality using a good platform and the digital technology. So there are always, as usual, two sides of the coin that we can always see. So my point on that is that we had these inequalities in our system as well before the pandemic. And of course, the pandemic improved the way the life to some students, and it was worse for others. The point is how to find a balance, a good equilibrium regarding that point. So these are mainly the challenges. Just to mention then, if you take a look, Martin, about our survey, I would say it's really complete and would be interesting for you to take a look. But most of the faculty members were even surprised that they are so happy with the remote system, and most of the students as well. There are some problems, and basically I would say it's not from the point of view of having the classes online, but the interaction that comes together. So the ambience of the university, the other things that the personal touch, the personal contact that we have during usual times, not the classroom itself. I would say this is the less important factor. I am teaching right now in this mode, and I don't like to tell you the truth, because it depends on the way that you teach. I don't know. My classroom is at 8 a.m. and I don't know if everyone is on pajamas yet, or everyone is not yet awakened. But I cannot get the same. I tried everything already. I cannot get the same kind of participation that I try to force on my usual way to teach, discussions and so on. But I hope that people will get used to do that, and to participate more. It's a challenge for us as a professors to learn how to do that. But of course, it's also a situation that I probably will change with time for the students as well. So I see here at home, I have my boy is 17 years old. My girl is now 12, and they are learning online, and I would say that the uh, she's studying more than before, and I would say uh, they got used it very quickly, and I can see her talking all the time. And they managed at the school even to make exercises, physical education, that we call here online. So they managed to transform the way they teach, and I would say that with some creativity we can manage it as well.
I just have a question of information. I tried to go to this website and I reached the portal, but it has a lot of stuff on that portal. Which study is this?
Let me share the specific one. Okay, sorry. Another link for you. These are the reports.
Oh, it's this one here?
So yeah, the last one I sent, there
Yeah.
are you see there are 5 reports. Let me share you here with you. Just a second. Just 1 second. I'm not seeing it here. Just a minute. Okay. What? Okay, now I'm seeing it. If you go there, reports, so you have the presentation of the research, teachers, faculty members, students, and staff. So if you go to teachers or faculty members, you see here the report for the profile of the faculty, the how they changed the way they taught, their visions, the changes of activities, what they did, if they already used it before or not, uh, how they managed to change the content or whatever. Well, you can find it's very long report with all the questions, and you can see a little bit of of all the results that we have here. So it's a rather complete report. So I
Yeah,
believe it's really important.
I found it. I found it now. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
So would anyone else like to ask a question? I'm sure Martin and I can keep asking questions until the end. Yes, Rachel.
Okay, since Marcelo called me out. Hi, Marcelo. It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you. Well,
I agree with David's question that a good crisis is a silly thing to waste. So you have to look at what comes out positively from this crisis. And you pointed that out. And also you pointed out that what the students miss the most are the interactions. And like you, I'm not as worried about how much content they get, whether it's more or less. I'm really worried, particularly for the younger children, which is now what the literature here seems to emphasize, is their social and emotional needs for interaction and the kind of interaction that kids need in order to mature and grow up. And I think I see it with my grandkids. I see it even in myself, where I'm kind of starting to run out of steam being in the house all the time. And if we really consider that learning is a social activity, how much of the social, the real social, can be done via Zoom? Some of it is great, but we still can't, I think, replace the human touch.
yeah, I fully agree.
So yeah, so that's one. And specifically, as you know, in teacher education, what we are struggling with is trying to figure out, first of all, what is really the essential difference between actual practice and virtual practice. And because what we are all about in teacher education is to connect everything we learn with the practice, how are we able to do that in a way that is good enough? That's the question that I personally, and I think teacher education struggles with professionally at the moment.
Yes, I fully agree. The point is that I hope that we are facing a period of time that will eventually, improve. Well, I hope, at least this is our hope, and so it's we are dealing with a situation that we hope that it would return to normality or some kind of normality. The same happens at the university level. So I would say that most of the important stuff is outside the classroom. So the community that they are formed, the extracurricular groups that are formed in the university, the lunchtime, what happens. Well, I have been, as you, probably out of the conferences for 1 year. So what we miss from the conference? I miss the coffee break, not the conference itself. This is the point. I miss seeing my fellows, my my friends, and going for lunch or going for dinner. This is what I miss. The content I have here at the internet without any problem. So the same happens with the students of any age and of any place. So returning to the example I gave about Honduras, what I miss, I wanted to go there to taste the food and to make new friends, not to make the a presentation. That's the point. We hope that this is temporary. We really hope. I don't think it's. I think it's irreplaceable. This place of the contact, the human touch to that. I don't see any perspective on that. There are good tools though that can be used. I was trying, for example, in Zoom, and not in Zoom, in Google, we have that Jamboard, or we have specific things that you can play around and make a little bit of more interactivity, or asking more interactive projects. But of course, it would never replace the presence. I am really skeptical about that. I don't believe that the the virtuality can replace the presence of people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also, what worries me is that, Silicon Valley and all the big companies are going to really try to hang on to what they have now. So that's my worry.
Oh yeah.
But I completely agree with you. And thank you. Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you.
Well, Marcelo, the thing, to me, the thing that has been most interesting in the Brazilian case is how COVID exploded the myth of doing distance education, because the fact is that half the population in the schools does not have access to this. And Silicon Valley can talk all it wants, but until there's an infrastructure investment of a huge amount, and someday maybe the government will take this on, but until they do, it would be really you really, just like you face. It is very good that these kids that have to travel 3 hours now don't have to travel 3 hours, but you help them to get the technology that they could participate with everybody else. Effectively, the Brazilian government has to do this for half the population in order to have this kind of system at the school level.
Yeah,
right.
I agree, Martin. But I don't know if it rings a bell, but we have here a president that seems to think that there is no pandemic at all, and there is a president that they don't really believe in public education. So I don't think that would be now that this investment that is necessary, in my opinion, and it's fundamental, it will be done now. I don't. I really don't.
We've come up with a solution for that problem here.
Not yet completely, I would say.
Well,
not yet.
Well,
not
yet, but it's we may have to have a new low-tech American revolution in order to get them out. But the fact is that at least we've set the stage for it, and I highly recommend it.
Yes, look, we have a place now here. I don't know if you heard about this problem. We will have elections, municipal elections here next weekend, and there is a state, Amapá, which is they have a problem of energy. They are without energy for, I don't know, 10 days maybe not right now, and they don't have energy. Nobody has energy. Nobody has internet. Nobody has any kind of so we face this kind of problem right now here in the they depend, the infrastructure is so badly built that they are facing we are facing that right now here a problem in a big city of the country that is without energy for 10 days. So you can imagine that. So there are many problems here in Brazil that may need to be fixed. As we say here in Brazil, o buraco é mais embaixo. I don't know how to translate that in English. Look,
The hole is even
to
deeper.
those of you who are not in Brazil, we are now in a tropical storm right now. Started. So if my internet connection gets out, it's probably due to that.
Well, we've gone to in a way, an important shared experience, U.S. and Brazil, and it's very revealing, because it turns out that ultimately you need competent governments.
Yeah.
It's just a necessary ingredient into a well-functioning capitalist economy. And I think that the pandemic is an interesting way to learn this lesson, but it is a lesson to be learned. Now, we have a problem in this country that almost just short of half the country didn't seem to learn the lesson. And it's problematic. I'm sure in Brazil it's similar.
Yeah.
So Ricardo Primi, whom you may know, Marcelo,
Yes.
has a question.
Yes.
Hello, hello, Marcelo. Nice presentation. Just one question about selection. I remember there was, I think, a model from Universidade Federal de Pernambuco. I don't know exactly, where they selected. They didn't do a test like the entrance, like a name. They enrolled a lot of students in the most difficult courses of the first year, for instance, for engineering, and then use that as a selection. Like, I don't know if you have thought about this, and maybe in the future, like, have a kind of selection like this, because then it's, since it's online, maybe this is a solution. For instance, you get the most like selective courses, and you put the first disciplines that are more difficult, and then you enroll everybody because it's online, people can do, and then they as they like, if they pass the test, then you do the selection. I don't know if you know this model, or if you consider sometimes, I know it's difficult, of course, to change selection, but this could be a great opportunity now to do that because of the pandemic and so forth.
Yes, this could be. There are many possibilities, of course, using a little bit more of, statistics, or trying to reach out to more, previous grades from the students, and trying to make a statistical model. We have data. Data mining nowadays is a big issue, and the great possibilities of that the data mining is exactly to do that. Use a lot of data from the past in order to predict the future, or to take some challenges. So we have, just to mention one example, the grades of the students from all their past. We have the NM from many years. We have our correlations with our vestibular. We could easily not, but we could make a statistical model in order to predict by the students' grades and the schools, which ones are the profile that we are looking for, at least to make our first selections and so on. We could do that. We have tools to do that. The problem is that is more, in my opinion, a cultural problem right now regarding the vestibular as a solidified way in order to make the entrance examination. The other issue that it's worth mentioning is that also to do some kind of of experiment like that, we would need online testing systems, a problem with the validity of to avoid cheating and so on, that unfortunately is very common in Brazil. As I mentioned before, the Catholic University of Campinas. I talked yesterday with the rector. They tried part of the exam in order to make it online, because they have a different profile and so on. And and it happened that a similar storm like this one happened, and half of the city went out of light, of energy for 2 hours, and they destroyed all the scheme because they don't have light, and they had to do it online, synchronous way. So it's complex in order to think on a a different exam. Of course, we can use statistical models as well in order to make thousands of different tests. But it's not easy to make this transformation from one day to the other. It takes some years of changing time and some pilots. So we are now experimenting. For example, in the entrance for our schools, for high schools, we are not doing any test at all. We will be using the previous grades from the school. Let's see, and we will see what happens next year. I'm really not afraid of experimenting and trying different ways of doing that. In Profis as well, we are doing this experiment and test in order to use the grade of the schools instead of having any exam. Let's see if it works.
Marcelo, I think
Excuse me, Martin,
I
let me
think
just-
Ricardo's trying to propose something else, and it's a really interesting idea. Of course,
No, I understood, but the challenge to
course.
make these changes even more complicated, because you have to convince initially the faculty that they have to, in our case, for, let's say, engineering, as Ricardo mentioned it, we have to multiply the number of students by maybe 30, 20, 30, and so we will have to have, even online, we will have need to have infrastructure and faculty members willing to do that.
But the great thing about it is if you use the grades to basically invite a smaller set of students, but still larger than the ones that you would admit, and then have them take, I don't think it has to be the most selective course. I think it just has to be the introductory course, and you measure not only their skill, their content knowledge, but you also measure their discipline to see if they can finish the course and how well they can do.
I would say it's a great idea. The problem is it's not easy to implement, I would say.
No, nothing is easy to implement, but it turns out that you might actually get a better group of students.
I agree.
So we've come to the official end of our time. So I just want to take this moment to thank Marcelo, for a really interesting seminar, particularly in light of all the challenges you're facing, Marcelo. We're grateful to you for taking the time and sharing some of your thoughts with us. And those who have other classes or other meetings that they must attend are now free to leave without embarrassment. But Marcelo, if you're willing to stick around for a few more minutes, I know there are some more questions, so we'll continue the conversation. And I know Josh Weiss has a question. So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to pose it here. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So Marcelo, thank you so much. This is tremendously informative. I work at Stanford as kind of support in tech and rolling out learning design and that kind of thing. And as I look at kind of the reports that you've been handing off here, I'm really impressed by the level of data that you all have been collecting. And one thing that we've been trying as well is to see not only how people are using technology, but kind of use cases and some ingenuity or innovation that's going on, because if you apply enough pressure to a classroom environment, people will figure out solutions. And I know that from my time in Brazil, that ingenuity and jeitinho and this creativity is very rich in Brazil. So I'm just curious if there's anything more qualitative or anything that you've seen that points to innovation cases or any particularly interesting uses of education technology or just getting around difficulties that instructors or students have shown.
Well, there are so many examples of people trying to use different tools and ideas. Uh, I don't recall specifically any education initiative which is, well, it's a little bit more as something that I try to say and explain to the teachers here, or professors. They are in Brazil, as you probably know as well, is that everyone is so much concerned about the content and not about the experience and the idea that we can share about that. Everyone was very much worried about the how the quality will change with online education and so on. I say, look, why don't we made this flexibility? I allowed everyone to change the curriculum, the courses, in order to open new disciplines. For example, I gave an idea that I found very interesting. Why don't we start, for example, in the social science, in the in places where they were more reactive to this remote education? Why don't we start a class on the pandemic, and being a class of solidarity to people who are really suffering from this pandemic? So the students would go and probably be able to do a group together, call elderly people that are lonely, or to go to collect food for people who is starving. And I am sure that this kind of experience will give the students more knowledge than anything that they could learn from the content itself. So this kind of flexibility is that something that I miss in the Brazilian context, that we can really adapt to our jeitinho, as you mentioned, to our higher education system. And this is not possible. Our system is so rigid, so fixed in such a way that we couldn't do that. I mentioned one example of the professor of my son here, the geography professor. Instead of, he was supposed to give a content. I don't really know which was that, but he, instead of doing that, he asked the students to make groups and discuss the evolution of the pandemic around the world. So they had to learn about the pandemic, they had to learn about geography, they had to learn how to work in groups, how to make a report, and so on and so forth, as you probably know. So this kind of uh, possible flexibility is hindered a little bit here by the rigidity of our curriculum system. So this is something I'm trying to fight against, but it's not easy. From the technological point of view, I would say there are many ideas that happened around the place, and but probably are very similar to the ones that were developed around the world. I don't recall any specific one that really caused my attention.
Erica?
Thank you. And we were talking about online exams. I just want to talk about, I'm working in a company in São Paulo, and we had the first online vestibular in INSPER. And it, of course, the scale was not really big. We have like 2,000 students, and the test was online, and you have like artificial intelligence method to see if the students were cheating or not, and it worked really well. You use IRT models as well to make students make different items. Like we have more than 100 items, and students take like 20. So we have many kinds of tests. So we have a lot, and we have like 3 phases to validate the test. So we have took a lot of care to avoid this kind of lack of validity, but it worked really well. And we have like the student have 1 hour if he had some problem to take the test again. And after the test, we analyzed the data to see if any student had problems with connections, if this impacts the final grade of the students. In this case, we would call the student again and let him do the test once again but we analyzed the data and we saw that it didn't happen with any student. But the data that we have, it allows us to do this kind of analysis because we have the time in each item and we have a lot of information that we don't have in the paper test. And in January, we will do the second term, the second time, this vestibular. And I think we are very hopeful that we will be even better. I think it's a challenge. And in many cases in São Paulo, it didn't work so well, but I think we are learning. And I think the online environment, they have a lot of data that help us to validate the test.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that this is the future, and we should proceed to do that, as I mentioned to Martin. The problem is in a public university that as we do, and trying to do more and more this affirmative action, social inclusion programs, and so on. This is a big challenge for us because we will be, of course, accused of elitism and so on. In a university like INSPER, is yet possible from the size and the, but we will go to this model, I am sure, in few years. We are trying to develop more and more, but it's a very delicate pace that we should do in order to not to discredit the system if something goes wrong. We should try to do some pilots in order to do that as well. Even NM is doing that. This year there will be a pilot in the city of São Paulo to try to do an online system. They will test. I don't know. Let's see.
So I'm going to ask Carla Esquere, our colleague from UFBA, to ask the last question. And I will point out to everyone that Marcelo has put his contact information in the chat. So if you want to, Marcelo, you've made yourself available. So if you have further questions or want to engage further with Marcelo, he has provided his contact information there. But Carla, you have the last question.
Hi, Marcelo. It's a pleasure to be here. I got my master and PhD at Unicamp. Yes, long time ago. So I had the pleasure to be there, to be in this big structure, to this beautiful library and everywhere there. So in that time, I remember there was a program, PED, I remember for internship for master and PhD students could help during classes, yes, for undergrad students. I was wondering if something changed since then, maybe 20 years ago from now, and also because of this pandemic. So if something changed, maybe other students or a special program could help somehow in these virtual classes.
Oh yeah, we have this program yet. We have two, PAD and PED. They are teaching assistants from both undergraduate and graduate programs, and we have more than 2,000 per semester. So it's a big program, and we pay the students for helping the teachers, the faculty members, and they are working online during this period as well. So everything is kept. We kept working as much as possible during this pandemic. So the program is still on. It's a huge program, and we also improve it. Even we have a training period before the semester starts, and we will also plan to keep it online from now on, because of course it's easier than we had typically a class of 1,000 people trying to attend. It was a mess, and we had to provide coffee break from everyone. Now everything will be more less complicated, at least. I hope it's still working and working very well. We have a very complicated, very, very complex and well-developed program.
Okay, well, thank you all, and special thanks to you, Marcelo. It's great to see you, and we really appreciate your.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be at least here with you, at least at distance. Thank you very much.
Yes,
and you didn't have to get on a plane to come here.
That's right.
Yeah, but there are other things
Oh.
that your presence is missing. Yeah.
Right. And we miss you too, very much.
Okay.
Okay,
see
thank
you.
you all, and see you next week.
Ó, Tatiana tá aí também. Hi,
Oi,
Tatiana.
Marcelo. Tudo bem? Tudo, e você? Vou mandar uma
Okay.
mensagem para você. Tchau, tchau.
Nice to see you guys. Bye bye.
Oi, Carla.
Olá.